Hello, welcome to LifeTalk for Tuesday, October 23rd, 2018. I'm Mark Crutcher, and lurking on the other side of the table, as they always are, is my lovely assistant, Renee. Hello, Rennie.
Hello.
And my lovely daughter, Sheila.
Hello. You're actually the one lurking on that side. I'll say
Oh,
that.
is that right?
Two against one, right?
Steady, Doppy, or I'll tell everybody how you got your nickname.
I'm sure they would love to hear that.
Right. Anyway, we got a lot of things to get to today, but you had something you wanted to bring out first.
Yes. We post our videos on YouTube. We post them on a lot of different platforms, and YouTube's one of them. And we got a really cool comment from Alicia Willenbong. She wanted to thank us for making these videos. She had just subscribed several days ago after watching your video on how views on abortion impact care for the elderly. As a pro-life person that works with the elderly at an assisted and independent living home, I couldn't agree more with what you said. God bless you.
That's nice.
So that was really cool.
Yes, it was.
And also, I am getting a lot of calls for show ideas. And just because we don't use them doesn't mean it's not a good show idea. We're just,
Right.
It's not the time.
it's right,
Yeah,
exactly.
and we
So-
save some of them. I have saved
Yeah.
some of them on my computer.
Yep.
And then later on, when something happens in the news, we think, okay, that ties together, so we can use that show idea.
Exactly. Yeah. So thank you for those calls. We
Absolutely.
We appreciate them.
And we're going to send this young lady a mug.
We are.
Just like the one,
Right in front of me.
right. We'll be getting that out.
Yep.
But we do have a lot of things that are trending this week, and let's get to them. All right. In Michigan, a cleaning crew there has found remains of, one report said over 60 babies in a former funeral home in Detroit. Some were mummified, so that means they'd been there for a number of years. And some of them were in the ceiling, some were in the walls, some were...
Yeah. And the report, this particular article that we have, it says that 10 mummified babies were found in the ceiling, fetuses as they like to call, and then one full-term baby was also found in a wall.
It's pretty amazing when you think about it. But here's the most amazing thing to me, and again, it's the godless leftist media that we have in this country. You've brought me several articles on it. I've read a couple that were in the Dallas paper. Not one of them, not one, mentioned the possibility that this funeral home had some connection with the abortion industry up there, and these were aborted babies.
Well, and they also found it was shut down. The reason the cleaning crew was in because new owners,
Right.
and so they were cleaning the building. And apparently there was trash all over the place. Not a nice funeral home.
Sounds like an abortion clinic.
Exactly. And so there were remains of adults too. It wasn't just babies, but the fact that the mummified babies were hidden in the ceiling and then the walls, it makes you wonder what's going on there.
Yeah.
Well, and they found, which is pretty cool, they did find the parents to most of them, is what I just read. So,
Well, it may have nothing to do with abortion.
and it may.
And it
who
may.
knows? Because abortion clinics are sketchy anyways.
Right.
And they don't know what to do with the remains,
And that's the
or
big
somebody
issue.
won't pick them up. Biohazards won't take them, or it's illegal and they can't.
Right. So
I mean,
that's
there's
the
no
big issue
telling.
here. And the big issue here to me is we don't know whether this is attached to abortion or not, but we do know two things. First off, that the abortion clinics are having an increasingly difficult time of finding people to haul off the carcasses and the corpses of the babies they butcher. And they're stacking them up in their refrigerators. We saw a report here a couple of years ago of a former abortion clinic worker coming forward saying that in the refrigerator in the employee break room, where you put your lunch for the day, were dead babies in jars. Can you imagine going and open up the thing to put your sandwich in there for lunch and there's a dead baby?
No.
And abortion clinic protesters all the time, will see, biohazard waste being just dumped in the dumpsters.
Right.
And so a bunch of clinic worker protesters and sidewalk counselors, they'll actually go dumpster diving and
Oh, yeah.
retrieve these babies so they can, actually be buried and have a proper funeral.
Well, yeah, and I think the important thing about this is the media is going to cover it.
Right.
Even if somebody said this is abortion related, it's not going to be covered.
This story will be dropped like a hot rock
Right.
the minute the authorities come out and say, we think that these babies might have come from an abortion clinic.
And even if they haven't, it is still abortion related, because abortion has caused this country to have no respect for life.
Especially unborn.
Exactly. No respect for the amazingness of life. And so, yeah, if these babies were killed or not by abortion, they're still dead.
Right.
We're just going to toss them away, not give them proper respect that they deserve.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that's
right. That's exactly right. But anyway,
Hi, Norma. Hi, Terry.
are those live?
I know that's random. Sorry.
Yeah, it's pretty random.
Just saying hi.
Just out of nowhere, you just,
Yeah.
okay. All right, another story. And again, this one kind of relates to the pro-abortion leanings of the American media. Rae Carruth, former NFL player, and we talked about him in the report.
We did, under the radar violence over the conflict of abortion.
Right.
I think I got that a little bit wrong, but it's still under projects and reports at our website.
If you go to the Pro-Life America website, under the projects and reports, and read the under the radar violence, and we talked about this undercover thing that's going on that the media refuses to talk about.
Yes.
The number of women that get murdered in this country because they refuse to have abortions.
Right.
I mean, every once in a while you'll see a news story pop up from like a local newspaper, that says, oh, a woman, was killed. But that's rare
Right.
because they don't want to report on it.
Yeah, apparently this guy got 18 to 24 years in prison, but he was let out at the 18 here. So.
Yeah, it said he
He
served
murdered.
19 years.
He was an NFL player. And actually, in our report, it's the first thing we talk about
Yes.
because we put him in alphabetical order by the
Yeah.
victim's name.
Right.
His victim's name was Sharika Adams.
Yes.
And she got pregnant, and he didn't want to pay child support.
Yep.
And he tried to pressure her into having an abortion, which she refused to do. When she was 8 months pregnant, she continually refused his demand to have an abortion. When she got to along 8 months, he hired a friend of his.
Yeah, he hired
shooter.
two hitmen.
Two hitmen.
And the hitman, one serving less time, the driver, but the guy who actually shot her, he's serving more time than this ex-NFL player.
Right. Well, and he was a participant. He didn't just hire them and send them out. He followed her in his car, and he got in front of her and slowed down so that they could get beside her and kind of locked her in and shot her. They shot her 4 times. She died, but her baby survived
Her baby now has cerebral palsy.
as a result of this.
And the child is being taken care of by the maternal grandma.
Yes.
And now that he's out of prison, he says that he wants custody of the child.
Oh my.
Yeah, he says he wants custody of the child.
No,
and
thank you.
The maternal grandmother said, I can forgive him, but there's no way he's taking that child that he wanted dead.
Oh goodness.
That's amazing.
The nerve.
Well, there's a lot of these guys have a lot of nerve.
Gosh.
But what it goes to, Renee, is what we talked about. You and I wrote that report together. The reason that historically the feminist position on abortion has been pro-life is because early feminists recognized that abortion was something that served the purposes of sexually irresponsible and sexually predatory males.
That's right.
And that's what we see. That's one of the things that just jumps out at you when you fight this every day, is how this is being used by those type of men.
That's right.
The question becomes then, what happens when one of these guys is using abortion to get himself out of the child support or marrying the woman or whatever it might be? What happens when she refuses? And what we're seeing is, and by the way, in our report, we've got about 100 women in there that have been killed in that report. We didn't get them all by any stretch. And we didn't even put the ones in there that were just beat up or put in a nursing home or injured some way. We only put the ones in there that were actually killed.
Right.
So this is a massive problem.
Yes, it is.
And we found quotes from the National Abortion Federation conferences where they know this is a problem. They don't care.
Yeah, so much for abortion empowering women.
That's
Right.
exactly right.
Exactly.
Yep.
And so they just ignore this. And like I said, 100. We had 100 women, or 98, or something like that, in that report that we put out, and we know we only got a small fraction of them. And again, that's not the women who were beat up or put in a nursing home, just the ones who were killed. If one abortionist were to get shot today, it would be international news,
All over the place.
every place.
Yeah.
And what I want to know, and I'll continue to ask this question until I get one of these people from the godless left to give me an answer. Why is it that a dead abortionist counts and a dead woman doesn't? These women are victims of the violence of abortion, just like the babies are, and just like the abortionist who gets shot is. So why aren't we talking about them? And the reason we're not is because the media is not going to talk about them. It makes a point that no one on that side wants to have made,
Right.
which is this is being done for men. It has nothing to do with profiting women.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest lie ever told.
Yes, it is.
And an offshoot of this, we also saw this week, a report's coming out now showing that the Obama administration broke the law in these people that are coming from foreign countries, flooding into Texas, flooding into California, Arizona, and so forth. Sometimes these young girls are pregnant and they want abortions. Now we're finding out that Obama was taking those girls from states that require parental notification, like Texas,
Specifically Texas,
specifically Texas, to places that don't require it,
parental notification.
so they can get
Yep.
abortions. Now, one of the things that we have found out in all this mess with this immigration is that a lot of these so-called families that are getting broken up are not families at all. You have a 14 or 15-year-old girl there
Right.
with an adult male, and they're saying, oh, this is my daughter. It turns out it's not.
Right.
It's not his daughter. It's a girl that he's brought here for sexual trafficking purposes. He's going to sell her to somebody, or he's going to abuse her. A lot of these kids are getting pregnant on the trip. And the Obama administration was supporting the perpetrator by getting these girls aborted.
Right.
Well,
He is a pedophile.
Yes.
Not only was Barack Obama a bald-faced liar, and by any measure the worst president this country ever saw, and a moral defective, now we know that he is participating in what we have identified through another report that we did, the child predator. You go to childpredator.com, you can see it. We proved that the National Abortion Federation and Planned Parenthood are operating a nationwide pedophile protection racket. They are protecting the men who rape children, and we proved it. It's not even debatable.
Right. I mean, besides Bill Clinton, he's probably the most pro-abortion president that we've had. And can you imagine if Hillary Clinton would have taken office?
Right.
well, the only
And she's the worst of the bunch.
Yes.
She's worse than either one of those two. But the fact is that Barack Obama knew, because we had put this stuff out and it got a lot of attention, that Planned Parenthood and National Abortion Federation were operating this pedophile protection racket, and he didn't do anything about it. And now we know why he didn't. It's because he was participating in it.
Right.
but this whole thing was discovered. Margot Cleveland, a writer and a lawyer for the Federalist. The reason she discovered this was she looked through federal court papers about a court case, and this is how she discovered it.
Stumbled across it.
So, I mean, they obviously, it's public, federal court cases are public record, but they, so they had to put it in there. But it was obviously buried enough, because they didn't want people to see it.
Well, the point you were making a moment ago about Hillary Clinton, this is what I have repeatedly said, and we've all said this. We're not here to tell anybody how to vote other than you better vote pro-life. Don't call yourself a Christian. Don't call yourself a pro-lifer if you go out here and vote for some pro-abort. But the fact is, can you imagine where our country would be as far as the abortion issue goes had Hillary Clinton been elected rather than
Right.
Donald Trump? You can complain, and there's a lot to complain about Trump. He does a lot of things and says a lot of things that are pretty over the top, and I wouldn't suggest you say those. And to be honest with you, a lot of them aren't very presidential. But what we have to remember is what the alternative would have been to Donald Trump.
Right.
And this degenerate Hillary Clinton, I think, would have been worse than Barack Obama and her husband. I think she's got an axe to grind.
Agree. Right.
And she would have been worse than either one of them. But anyway, now we know that among his many other sins, Barack Obama was if not a pedophile himself, which we don't know about that, but he was at least a pedophile protector when he was in the Oval Office and using abortion for that purpose. Anyway, when we come back from RoeBots, we've got an interesting case to discuss coming out of the Alabama Supreme Court that has tremendous potential, tremendous ramifications or consequences for it. So we'll be talking about that in a minute, but right now, let's take a moment out for RoeBots.
In 1973, the U.S. Supreme Court legalized abortion nationwide. The decision is called Roe versus Wade, and those who defend it are known as RoeBots. This is how they think.
Even if we all agree that abortion is wrong, the answer to it is not in changing laws, but in changing hearts.
Of course, this sounds real warm and fuzzy. And while I agree that the answer to all of humanity's problems lies in changing hearts, let me ask you this. What would our crime rate look like if we applied this change of heart philosophy across the board? For example, what would happen if we did away with the laws against rape and replaced them with a campaign to change the hearts of rapists? Or what about the perverts who sexually abuse children? Should we round them up and put them in jail, or just wait around for their hearts to change? And what if some guy is viciously beating his dog and refusing to feed him? Should we just write off this poor dog in the hope that one day the coward who's beating him to death will have a change of heart? The fact is, we seem to only apply this change of heart standard to the unborn. You can bet the family farm that if 3,000 born Americans were being intentionally butchered every day, no one would be suggesting that we be patient and wait for some change of heart to take place. We'd be demanding action, and we'd be demanding it right now. What we need to remember is that the law is not intended to change hearts. It is intended to restrain the heartless. And in modern society, no one is more heartless than the morally bankrupt goons who murder helpless children and those who support their right to do so. In the final analysis, if abortion is not wrong, then we don't need a change of heart. But if it is wrong, then we have no right to let innocent human beings be slaughtered by the millions while we twiddle our thumbs on the sidelines and wait for their killers to have a change of heart. All right, we're back. A neat thing is happening in Alabama. The Alabama Supreme Court has ruled that an unborn baby is a person under the law. They're even saying that if you kill an unborn child, you can be...
It's murder.
It's murder and you can be executed.
That's right.
In a state that has the death penalty.
And Justice Tom Parker, the person who, the justice that said that, once called actually the Supreme Court to revisit Roe versus Wade.
Yep. I want to read something he's written here. I write specially to expound upon the principles presented in the main opinion and to note that the continued legal anomaly and logical fallacy that is Roe versus Wade, I urge the United States Supreme Court to overrule this increasingly isolated exception to the rights of unborn children. Mm-hmm. Now, this case is not directly an abortion case. This is a situation where a guy named Jesse Phillips was convicted for murdering his girlfriend or his wife, and his unborn child. Mm-hmm. And he was given the death penalty for both cases. Mm-hmm. And they sued saying, well, look, the unborn child's not a person, so therefore you can't convict me of that. Now the Alabama Supreme Court, it says, no, mm-hmm. they are persons.
Yes, they are.
And they're upholding the conviction. Mm-hmm. Now, what's important about this is, we've talked about this on previous editions of LifeTalk. We're all fighting for the overturn of Roe, but we got to be very careful here. There's two ways it can be overturned. One is if the Supreme Court comes out here and says that the unborn is a person.
That's right.
For purposes of the law.
Which is the correct way.
But if they do that, then even Harry Blackmun, who wrote the Roe versus Wade decision, is one of the most evil people on the face of that this earth ever saw. He admitted, he said, if the suggestion of personhood of the preborn is established, the of course, the right to abortion collapses, for the fetus's right to life is then guaranteed specifically by the 14th Amendment. So even he said, if we ever establish that the unborn is a person, the right to an abortion evaporates.
Which, I mean, it is established. It's scientifically established.
Well, he's talking about legally.
I know, but
Right.
there's no way that in this day and age you can refute that fact.
Now, there's the one way that the thing can be overturned, that Roe can be overturned. The other way is if the Supreme Court comes out here and just rules that the Constitution is silent on abortion, and therefore it's a states' rights matter. If that happens, it is an absolute disaster for the unborn child.
That's right.
Because then we're going to have to fight each individual state. I mean, you know, Texas would rule abortion illegal, but
Alabama, obviously.
yeah, but California, Washington, New York, states like that.
Colorado, right. Well,
Wouldn't.
and what that means is that, and I've said this many times, if we don't protect every baby in every state, we don't protect any baby in any state. Because the fact is, state lines are freely crossed. And you'll just have babies in states that are protected, like Texas and Alabama, being basically extradited by their mothers to places like California or Colorado or New York or Illinois.
There will be abortion caravans, you know,
Oh,
like
yeah, right.
buses, you know, let's load up the women so they can go across state lines to kill their children.
Kill their baby. So you don't protect any baby as long as one state allows legalized abortion. That's what's so dangerous about overturning Roe that way.
Right.
But
Well, it was all based on a lie anyways. Roe versus Wade, Doe versus Bolton, it was completely fabricated, the
it's
whole
made
thing.
up out of whole cloth.
Yes.
Right. And both of the complainants in there, one of them was always pro-life, the one in Doe versus Bolton, and then Norma McCorvey, of course, in Roe versus Wade, saw the error of her ways later on and tried to get Roe reversed.
She became a pro-life activist.
Right, and right up till the day she died.
Yep.
But this is a very important deal.
Yes, it is.
And the pro-aborts, I'm sure right now, are having to sit in a room somewhere and thinking, okay, what do we do about this? Because if we just let it go, then it affects Alabama. But if we challenge it and it goes to the Supreme Court and they rule that the Alabama Supreme Court was correct, then it affects the whole United States.
Yeah.
So they've got a dicey problem on their hands right now, which is great.
I'm sure they'll figure it out.
So what
though.
we need to be doing is pushing the Supreme Court to say, hey, look at this case.
Well, yeah, and if they challenge it, if the pro-aborts challenge it, then the Supreme Court will be put in that position of having to look at it.
So let's hope that they challenge
Let's
it.
hope that
yeah,
they're
'cause,
stupid enough to do that.
You know, after, the new justices that are supposedly, you know, going to be on the pro-life side, then the pro-aborts would really have a hard time if it was sent to the Supreme Court.
This is a great news. This is something that's needed to be done, and
And Alabama was the state to do it.
Alabama was
Your-
the place to do it.
Your home.
Birthplace.
Yeah.
Well, of course, I'm a Texan.
Well,
I mean,
yeah, but you were born in Alabama.
I was born in Alabama, and I've been teased about that a few times, and I will point out that William Barrett Travis, who led the troops at the Alamo, was from Alabama, and I don't think anybody's questioning his Texas credentials, so I'll just rely on that. And I wonder too, as y'all know, I'm a big Alabama football fan, and they are just running roughshod and have been for years, and maybe God is blessing the Crimson Tide football team for what their Supreme Court. You know, it could be.
Who knows?
You know, not buying that.
No, not really.
Nobody's buying that. I'm not buying it either.
I'm not.
But anyway, I don't think God cares who wins the football game.
I don't think he does.
Contrary to what you see all these guys praying, you know, for victory and praying that, oh, thank you, Lord, for letting us win.
I don't know. He could have a favorite team.
Yeah, he could. Well, I wish he'd shine a little bit of that on the Cowboys once in a while because they're a disaster. I'm not sure Alabama couldn't beat the Cowboys the way things are going right now. But anyway, this is a neat thing that's happening in Alabama, and we need to be praying for the resolution of that to go the right way because, again, the problem that the pro-aborts have is the words of Blackmun, who wrote the Roe versus Wade decision, who said if it's ever established that the unborn is a person, this case becomes moot, the right to abortion evaporates, That's the end of it.
They can't claim clump of cells anymore. So
None of the other lies they tell. Anything else? Y'all got anything else?
I would encourage our viewers to go to our LifeTalk Facebook page. I posted a old picture of you on the old LifeTalk set. It's quite funny, you know,
Oh, yeah.
90s
It is.
glasses with, you know, your little hair that you had. And so I encourage viewers to go to our LifeTalk Facebook
Sheila
page.
thinks that's so funny.
It is. It is. Other people have.
Right. Yeah, well, if a lot of these people have watched Life Talk since the beginning, they know I had hair around the sides, and
It's still funny.
I just decided to cut it off. But
It looks like Erica's an Alabama fan too.
there's lots of those out there.
Yes, I'm sure there are. And then Terry Palmquist, she said, this is a little bit controversial, but she said AHA needs to understand this about the Supreme Court in Alabama.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of people in the pro-life movement need to understand some of the things that are going on. But
That's right.
we, like I said, we just need to be praying for these people, and we need to be thanking God for these justices and this guy Tom Parker and all these other people down there.
That are actually standing up for what's right.
And putting and some of them are probably putting their political futures on the line. Maybe not so much in Alabama,
Not in Alabama.
right? But or they wouldn't be in
Yeah.
Texas. But they're going out on a limb here, and they're doing it for the unborn. And so we need to be praying for their safety and for them, because if this thing continues to grow, we've seen recently a major uptick in the amount of violence
Yes.
on the side of the godless left. And this is really being levied against the pro-lifers around the country. We're seeing story after story after story
Yeah, it's
of how
insane.
vicious and nasty and violent these people are becoming.
This morning there was on Facebook. I saw that there's a woman, a pro-life woman, who outside an abortion clinic, who was in the hospital because she was
Beat up.
Yep,
attacked.
we're seeing this more and more. But you know what? We've been telling people on this show for almost 20 years now that the closer we get to winning, the more violent they're going to become, the more vicious they're going to become, and we are seeing that.
Yep.
The pro-aborts know for a fact that they're losing.
And they're nasty.
And they're
they are
nasty.
becoming nastier by the minute.
They're nasty. They don't even make any bones about how
No,
nasty
they don't
are.
care. Like, if you showed them a video of how they were acting, they'd be like, good for me, you
Yeah,
know?
right.
I'm standing up for choice.
Right. Yeah. We're entering uncharted waters, I think, and we better be prepared for what's going to be coming. Anyway, got anything else?
Nothing else.
And we want to encourage people to send in their show ideas and send them to Renee. She's the gargoyle here. She's the keeper of the flame.
Or you can post it on our social media.
Social media. And
Lots of ways to get in touch with us.
if we use your stuff, we'll get you a mug just like these, just like we're sending to this young lady.
Yep.
And
And with the
what is this?
I'm modeling. And with the cooler weather, this is a nice mug because it does hold a lot of coffee or tea.
Or whatever. Hot chocolate.
Hot chocolate.
Yeah, hot chocolate. Yeah.
All right. Is that it?
That's it.
All right. Till next time, remember, Life Dynamics is not here to put up a good fight. We're here to win, because winning is how the killing stops. We will see you next Tuesday.